devotees, and happy Nirjala Ekadashi to all of you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Atha Dityodhyaya Sanjay Uvacha Tam Tatha Kripyavistam Ashnu Purna Kulekshanam Vishidantam Idam Vakyam Uvacha Madhusudana.
Chandra said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudana Krishna spoke the following words.
Text 2. Shri Bhagwan Vacha Kutasva Kasmalam Idam Vishme Samupastitam Anarya Justam Asvargyam Akirti Karam Arjuna.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to higher planets but to infamy.
Text 3. Klabhyam asma gama partha Natatve upapadyate Shodram hirdya dorbalyam Tyakto tishtha parantapa.
O son of Pritha, do not yield to this degrading importance. It does not become you. Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise, O chastiser of the enemy.
Text 4. Arjuna vacha Katham bhishmam aham sankhe Dronam cha madhusudana Ishubhi pratiyotsyami Pujarvari sudana.
Arjuna said, O killer of enemies, O killer of Madhu, how can I counterattack with arrows in battle men like Bhishma and Drona, who are worthy of my worship?
Guru, text 5. Gurun ahatva hi mahanubhavan Shreyo bhuktam bhakshyam apiha loke Hatvartha kamam stu gurun iheva Bhunjiya bhogan rudhira pradigdhan.
It would be better to live in this world by begging them than to live at the cost of the lives of great souls who are my teachers. Even though desiring worldly gain, they are superiors. If they are killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with blood.
Text 6. Nachetad vidma kataranno gariyo Yadva jayma yadiva na jayu Yan eva hatva na jijivishamas Teva sthita pramukhe dhashtarashtra.
Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live, yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield.
Text 7. Karpanya dosho pata sabhava Gacchami tvam dharma sammura cheta Yachreyasyan nishchitam bruhi tanme Shishyastyaham sadimam tvam prapannam.
Now I am confused about my deity and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me for certain what is the best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me.
Text 8. Nahi prapashyami mama panudyad Yachokam uchoshanam indriyanam Avapya bhumav asapatnam riddham Rajyam suranam api chadhipatyam.
I can find no means to drive away this grief. which is drying up my senses, I will not be able to dispel it, even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth, which sovereignty like the demigods in heaven.
Text 9. Sanjaya Vacha Evam Uktva Rishikesham Gudakesha Parantapa Nayotsaiti Govindam Uktva Tushnim Bhabuvaha.
Sanjay said, having spoken thus, Arjuna, chastiser of enemies, told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent.
Text 10. Tam Uvacha Rishikesha Prahastan Eva Bharata Senior Ubhyor Madhe Vishidantam Idam Vacha.
O descendant of Bharata, at that time, Krishna, smiling in the midst of both the armies, spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjun.
Text 11. Shri Bhagwan Vacha Asocyananvasocastam Pragnavadamscha Bhasase Gatasun Agatasumscha Nanu Sochanti Pandita.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead.
Text 12. Natvav evaham jatu nasam natvam neme janadipa nacheva na bhavishyama sarvasvayam ataparam.
Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be.
Text 13. Dehinosmin yatha dehe komaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara prapte dhiras tatra namuyati.
As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change.
Text 14. Matra spashastu kaunteya sitoshna sukha dukkada agami payino nityas tam stutitikshva bharata.
O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perceptions, ocean of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed.
Text 15. Yam hina vyatyante te purusham purushashabha samadukha sukham dhiram amritvaya kalpate.
O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both uncertainty, eligible for liberation.
Text 16. Nasato vidyate bhavo na bhavo vidyate sata ubhyorapi drishto antas tva anyas tattvadarshibhi.
Those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent, the material body, there is no endurance, and of the eternal, the soul, there is no change. This they have concluded by studying the nature of both.
Text 17. Avinashi tu tadvidhi yena sarvamidam tatam vinasham avyayasya na kaschit kartum arhati.
That which pervades the entire body, you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul.
Text 18. Antavanta ime deha nityasyokta sharirina anasino aprameyasya tasmad yudhasva bharata.
The material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is sure to come to an end. Therefore, fight, O descendant of Bharata.
Text 19. Yaenam veti hantaram yaschanam manyate hatam ubhyotau na vijanito nayam hanti na hanyate.
Neither he who thinks the living entity the slayer, nor he who thinks it slain is in knowledge, for the self slain slays nor is slain.
Text 20. Na jayate mriyate va kadachin nayam bhutva bhavitava na bhuya ajo nitya shashvatoyam purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire.
For the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain.
Text 21. Veda vinashinam nityam yainam ajam avyayam katham sapurusha partha kam ghatyati hantikam.
O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, eternal, unborn, and immutable, kill anyone or cause anyone to kill?
Text 22. Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani dinati naro parani tatha sharirani vihaya jirnani anyani samyati navani dehi.
As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones.
Text 23. Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavaka, na chainam kledyanti apo, na shoshyati maruta.
The soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, or withered by the wind.
Text 24. Achedyoyam adayoyam, akledyo shoshya evacha, nitya sarvagata sthano, achalo ayam sanatana.
This individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble and can be neither burned nor dried. He is everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Please forgive my mistakes. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Rasalila Srimati Mataji and Sakura Mataji. That was a really nice recitation. Thank you very much. So, dear devotees, a warm welcome to all of you on this most auspicious day of Pandava Nirjala Ekadasi. This is a special Ekadasi in one sense, in that the devotees make a special observance of fasting on this day. And like everything we do in Krishna consciousness, what is the aim in everything we do in Krishna consciousness? It is to please Lord Krishna. So the devotees on this Ekadasi, Srila Prabhupada said the main purpose of Ekadasi is not to fast or observe some austerity. The main purpose is to increase our hearing, chanting, and remembrance of Lord Krishna. In our normal duties, just eating is such a time-consuming act. We have to gather the ingredients, we've got to cut the ingredients, we've got to prepare the ingredients, we've got to cook. And then obviously we offer, it's all part of the process of bhakti yoga, but it does take time. So on days like this where we do not drink water or eat, automatically we have more time to focus our attention on other aspects of spiritual life. And the main aspect of Krishna consciousness is the process of hearing and chanting. So we are fortunate that today we are getting the opportunity to come together to begin reading the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the contents of the Gita summarized. If we have some time later on, we shall maybe speak a bit more about the Ekadasi and its significance. But for now, we will begin chapter number 2. So today we'll be reading text number 1. Sanjaya uvacha tam tata kripaya vishtam ashrupurna kulekshanam vishidantam idam vakyam uvacha madhusudanaha. The word for word synonyms. Sanjaya uvacha, Sanjaya said, tam, unto Arjuna, tata, thus, kripaya, by compassion, avistam, overwhelmed, ashtupurna, akula, full of tears, ikshanam, eyes, vishidantam, lamenting, idam, these, vakyam, words, uvacha, said, Madhusudanaha, the killer of Madhu. Translation by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sanjaya said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudan, Krishna, spoke the following words. So before we read the purport, we'll say the Mangala Charanam prayers. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmalitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Panchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripasindubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachadishatarine. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sanjaya said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudan, Krishna spoke the following words. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Material compassion, lamentation, and tears are all signs of ignorance of the real self. Compassion for the eternal soul is self-realization. The word Madhusudana is significant in this verse. Lord Krishna killed the demon Madhu, and now Arjuna wanted Krishna to kill the demon of misunderstanding that had overtaken him in the discharge of his duty. No one knows where compassion should be applied. Compassion for the dress of a drowning man is senseless. A man fallen in the ocean of nescience cannot be saved simply by rescuing his outward dress, the gross material body. One who does not know this and laments for the outward dress is called a Shudra, or one who laments unnecessarily. Arjuna was a Kshatriya, and this conduct was not expected from him. Lord Krishna, however, can dissipate the lamentation of the ignorant man. And for this purpose, the Bhagavad Gita was sung by him. This chapter instructs us in self-realization by an analytical study of the material body and the spirit soul, as explained by the Supreme Authority, Lord Sri Krishna. This realization is possible when one works without attachment to fruitive results and is situated in the fixed conception of the real self. The verse again, Sanjaya said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudana Krishna spoke the following words. So here we see the culmination of Arjuna's situation, where he had come under illusion. And what is the result? A depressed mind and eyes full of tears of sorrow. So this is, it says here, Krishna spoke the following words. So this is setting the seed for the Lord now speaking for the first time. So this chapter, number 2, is a very important chapter. And as Prabhupada entitles it, it's the contents of the Gita summarized. It is quite a lengthy chapter, 72 verses. And there are some key aspects of this chapter. I've summarized this in this slide. So the first section, section 1 to 10, is Arjuna's indecision and accepting Lord Krishna as his guru. And we read through the recitation today, we've been reading and we've seen how Arjuna, he goes through different phases. His indecision, it seems to stop, he seems to surrender, and then it arises again. So he goes through the various phases till he completely gives up. So once he surrenders to the Lord then speaks Gyan. Gyan means transcendental knowledge. And Sankhya means analytical study, to study minute. So the Lord then speaks Sankhya, philosophy, the analysis of the body and mind, the difference between matter and spirit. And that's quite a lengthy section from verses 11 to 30. And then having spoken about the difference between matter and spirit, we all live in the world. We all have to function in the world. We all have duties to perform in the world. So how, while situated in a contemporary situation of having to live and function in the world, can one always stay on the spiritual platform, aloof from matter? So Krishna speaks Sakam Karma Yoga. Sakam means, kam means desire. Sakam still means with desire. To perform Sakam Karma Yoga. Very interesting section. Then Krishna, the Lord, goes to a higher platform. Text number 38 to 53. Nishkam Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga without desire. That's also called Buddha Yoga. How one can become completely detached from work without reactions. Most people feel the moment we act, automatically there has to be a reaction. That's what karma means. And the Lord now explains there is a situation where we can act without incurring any reaction. And that's 38 to 53. And the last section, text 54 to 72, is called Stita Pragya. The qualities of a liberated soul, Jivan Mukta. So having explained the difference between matter and spirit, having explained performing duties and giving up enjoyment, having explained how one can become completely detached, the Lord now will describe the qualities of such a person. How can we recognize one who is situated on the platform just described? So a beautiful chapter, a wonderful chapter. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, the word Madhusudan is very significant. And we see Arjuna address the Lord as Madhusudan in this verse. Again, we've read quite a few times throughout the Gita. Krishna is addressed as Madhusudan by Arjuna. And Prabhupada says there is great significance in this Arjuna addressing Krishna by this name. And what is the significance? Prabhupada says Krishna killed the demon Madhu. So who knows who's this demon Madhu? Who can tell us? Anyone knows the pastime of Krishna killing the demon Madhu? Okay. Actually, if you read the pastimes of Krishna, the Lord, in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we won't find anywhere Krishna killing a demon called Madhu. So who is this Madhu? If we look at all of the time that since Krishna was a baby till he departed from this world, we can't find this demon Madhu. But yet, Arjuna is calling him Madhusudan. Actually, this demon Madhu, he was not killed by two-handed Krishna. He was killed by Krishna in another form. And this pastime is described in a few of the Shastras. Kalika Purana, the Devi Bhagavat, and also in the Mahabharata. And Srila Prabhupada briefly mentions this pastime in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 9th chapter, text number 37. Basically, this pastime is recited at the beginning of time. The spiritual world brought forth the material universe. And we know material universe means the Lord lying down in the Garbha ocean. And then he goes to sleep, and from his sleep, so many universes arise. So Lord Vishnu, he reclined in his cosmic slumber on Shesha, his serpent bed. And while the Lord slept, a lotus stem emanated from his navel, and from the top of the stem appeared Lord Brahma, the first created being. And Lord Vishnu gave him charge of the creation And Lord Brahma meditated on how he would accomplish the task given by the Lord. And the Lord had also instructed him on the Vedic literatures. So it is said that as Lord Brahma sat in his deep meditation, earwax, karana shota bhava. This is not the type of earwax we get. This is some other transcendental substance. Flowed from Lord Vishnu's ears. And from that earwax, two ferocious demons, Madhu and Kaitaba, were born out of the wax. And these two demons, they performed great penances for thousands of years. And being pleased by their penance, Lakshmi Devi, the Lord's consort, appeared before them and granted them the boon. She asked them what boon did they want. And they wanted the boon that they could only die when they so desired. And then being proud of this newly acquired asset, the ability to die only when you desire, the demons, they became very arrogant. And they decided to attack the topmost living entity, who was Lord Brahma, who was still meditating on his lotus stem. So they attacked Lord Brahma. They stole the 4 Vedas. And poor Lord Brahma, he was furious at their behavior, but he was helpless because they were so powerful. So when Lord Brahma is in trouble, who does he take shelter of? But Lord Vishnu. So he went to the Lord and sought his help. But the Lord was in deep slumber. And even though Lord Brahma tried to awaken him, he could not. And then Lord Brahma thought, and he realized that the Lord rests for his own personal reasons, for his own lila. And he decided to pray to Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra is Lakshmi Devi. And then she came in a special form, and she got, well, basically she came and she got the Lord up. And as Brahma had hoped, she showed mercy on him and she awakened the Lord. Lord Brahma, then he told Lord Vishnu about the nefarious deeds of Madhu and Kaitaba. And he begged the Lord to destroy them. And the Lord then manifested his form as Hayagriva, the beautiful horse incarnation. And he fought with Madhu and Kaitaba, and he killed them, and he retrieved the Vedic scriptures. But the Lord, we know from the pastimes of the Lord, he does not negate any boon that's given. But he has his means of bypassing the boons. So they had this boon that they would only die when they chose to. And so the Lord cleverly told him that just as Lord Goddess Lakshmi had given them the boon, they should also give him a boon. So the Lord went in the form of asking and begging a boon from these very proud demons, Madhu and Kaitaba. And they agreed to give him a boon. And once he agreed, he told them that they were so powerful that they should show him the same courtesy as his feminine half, the embodied form of his mystic energy, and they showed him then. And this way, the Lord, he tricked them. He said, they asked him, what boon do you want? He said, we will give you anything you want. And the moment they said, we will give you anything you want, the Lord said, I want your death. And so these demons, they were eventually killed. And the Lord, in his incarnation of Hayagriva, he put them to death. But there's also another meaning, which Prabhupada explains in the purport of Madhu. So in Sanskrit, there's many meanings to the word madhu. We know one meaning is sweet or honey. Honey is referred to as madhu. So one of our great acharyas, Sridhar Swami, he gives a very interesting interpretation of madhu. He says, in the material world, what does the conditioned living entity find very sweet? This very sweet is the false ego. And this false ego, it resides in the heart of everyone, making us forget our own identity. It is said the first thing that happens to the living entity when we fall from the spiritual world into the material world, the first thing that happens to us, or one of the first things that happens to us, we take on a false ego. We take on a false identity. And this false identity makes us forget our real identity. And we become intoxicated with this false identity. Just like sometimes the bees become intoxicated with honey. The living entity, us, we become intoxicated with the false ego. And this false ego is very, very difficult to overcome. I remember once I was sitting next to and taking breakfast with His Grace Pankaj Prabhu at Bhaktivedanta Manor. And I asked Pankaj Prabhu, I said, you know, this false ego seems to be such a hindrance and obstacle in my spiritual life. Can you tell me how to overcome this false ego? He looked at me and very calmly, he said, you can't. Very difficult. And then he paused for a moment and he said, yes, you can. But still you can. And here Sridhar Swami says, only with the torchlight of knowledge can we overcome. And how do we get knowledge? From who do we get knowledge? Transcendental knowledge? From Krishna. Absolute knowledge can only come from the absolute source, Krishna. So this knowledge comes from Krishna. So therefore Krishna is known as Madhusudan. He slayed the Madhu demon. And he also slays this honey, this Madhu, the sweetness of the false ego that keeps us entrapped. So as Srila Prabhupada says, it's very significant that Krishna is addressed at this stage as Madhusudan, because Arjuna is needing the Lord now to dispel this ignorance that he's caught under. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada talks about this compassion of Arjuna. Divya Gaurangi Mataji, she spoke about it nicely in Friday's class. But Prabhupada is drawing our attention again in this verse. The difference between material compassion and spiritual compassion. Material compassion means we only see the body. And we only see compassion relative to the body. But that's a very narrow view of compassion. Prabhupada says that real compassion is compassion for the eternal soul, self-realization. Arjuna was thinking he would be killing his grandfather, his teachers. So many men would be killed on this battlefield. There'll be so much of suffering. But he couldn't see beyond the body. There's one pastime of Srila Prabhupada. Once when Srila Prabhupada was traveling, I think it was in Indore, not so sure. But there he met an Indian gentleman. And he was a very nice life member, very surrendered to Srila Prabhupada and the devotees. But he was very unhappy about something. So one day he had the opportunity to be with Srila Prabhupada. And he said, Swamiji, I'm very troubled by something. Then Prabhupada says, what are you troubled about? He said, I went to see an astrologer. And the astrologer told me that in my past life, I actually fought in the battle at Kurukshetra. And the astrologer also told me that I fought on the side against Krishna. And this fact is troubling me a lot, that I fought against Krishna. Then Srila Prabhupada heard him, and then Prabhupada said, you don't have to worry. Then the man said, why? Then Prabhupada said, every person who fought in the battle of Kurukshetra and died, they never took birth again. And they were liberated. So you could not have fought in the battle of Kurukshetra, or you wouldn't have been here. Or you wouldn't have been here. And this man felt so relieved. So Arjuna, he was just looking, he was just feeling compassion from the material conception, material compassion. If he knew that every person that was their last birth in a material body, they were going to go back to the spiritual world, would there be any cause for lamentation? Would there be any cause for him to be sorry? There wouldn't be. So his compassion was material compassion. In the purport to the 42nd verse of the 7th chapter in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada writes, and this is in the context of Ashvatthama. We know Ashvatthama came and he killed, the sons of Draupadi, and then Arjuna took a vow that he would kill him and capture him. He captured him, and Draupadi made a vow that she would stamp on his head, and very angry. So when Arjuna brought Ashvatthama back to Draupadi and said, here you go, do with him as you wish, as you proclaimed. Draupadi, she felt compassion. She was thinking, his mother, Kripi, she'll have only one son. She has only one son. If that one son, she'll be suffering. And she was feeling compassion. And Prabhupada writes there, we should not give up our reason and discriminatory power just to be gentle. One must have good discriminatory power to judge a thing on its merit. So real compassion is based on the soul. When Srila Prabhupada first met his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada was a follower of Gandhi. He was using white cloth. And when he met his spiritual master, without saying anything, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he appealed to him. He said, you are a young man, an intelligent young man. You should preach the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and thus benefit the entire population. And Prabhupada immediately argued back. He said, we are a nation who is not independent. We are under the control of the British. First, let us become free from the control of the British, and then we can talk about spreading spiritual knowledge. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, this Krishna consciousness is so important, so fundamentally important, that nothing can wait for it. So real compassion means compassion on the platform of the soul, not on the body. Prabhupada also writes in the purport that this chapter instructs us in self-realization by an analytical study of the material body and the spirit soul, as explained by the Supreme Authority, Lord Shri Krishna. This realization is possible when one works without attachment to fruitive results and is situated in the fixed conception of the real self. Very interesting statement. So the Lord's going to take us to stages. The first stage is karma yoga. And karma yoga means working without attachment to the fruits of one work. And through this, while we remain attached to the fruits of our work, we can never come to the platform, the spiritual platform. We'll always remain on the material platform. That's the first thing. That means we have to become detached. We have to become detached and then become situated on the level of the self. Prabhupada gives a very nice analogy. If a man is drowning, say a man, fully clothed man is on a boat, he falls over the boat and he starts to drown. And someone jumps in and pulls the man's clothes out and said, I've saved him, I've saved him. What would you think of that lifesaver? He's completely crazy. He saved nobody. He's just saved the man's clothes. So in the same way, if we see people are suffering in this material world, and we try to address that suffering through addressing the body, obviously people have some basic necessities, but if we give more emphasis on the body, we are on the same level or same platform of that person who gone to save the person, but he only came back with the clothes. And Prabhupada says that is the mentality of a Shudra. A Shudra, in terms of the Varna ashram system, is a person who is not very spiritually advanced. Actually, is not advanced spiritually at all. A Kshatriya is supposed to be much more spiritually advanced than a Shudra. And if a Kshatriya brings himself down to the platform of a Shudra, simply thinking that the body is more important than the soul, then that person becomes degraded. And this is what Arjuna's position is. So to take a person out of such a situation, one needs to be heavy. One meaning of guru is heavy. A guru is heavy. Heavy with what? He's heavy with spiritual knowledge. And when a guru brings that spiritual knowledge to us, he's heavy. So we will see that Lord Krishna, when he acts as guru, is immediately, first thing he does, he chastises Arjuna in the next verse. You are speaking like a very learned man, but you are grieving for that which is not worthy of grief. So we are all like that in our material condition. Arjuna is showing us, he's like giving us a mirror. This is who you are. We are situated on this platform. The only way to come out is through spiritual knowledge, which we will get from the word of the Lord. So I'll stop here. If there's any questions or comments or reflections, please, dear devotees, share your reflections or any questions you may have.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
My humble obeisances to you. As you said, Arjuna was saying that the soldiers will die
Mm-hmm.
on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and obviously the soldiers, because they died in the battle of Kurukshetra, they will go back to the spiritual world. But Arjuna was not concerned about the soldiers. He was more concerned about the women and the children who will be left because the soldiers have died.
Mhm.
So what will happen to the women and the children when the soldiers die? They won't go to the spiritual world.
They will not go to the spiritual world. Depends on who they take shelter of. It is said the women should be protected at all stages of their life. When they are young through the father or through their sons. So if they are protected by worthy men, then certainly they can attain the spiritual world. They could be attain the spiritual world. It all depends who they are taking shelter of.
I mean, after the husbands died, like in the battlefield of Kurukshetra.
Oh, okay. From there, so we also know that if a wife is faithful, and when the husband dies, and if the husband is a worthy husband, he goes back to the spiritual world, then the wife follows. The wife gets all the merit, or 50% of the merit of the husband. That is the Vedic culture. If a wife is faithful to the husband, she gets 50%. So if the husband is gone to the spiritual world, then the wife would go also.
Okay, Prabhuji. Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
You know that you told that Draupadi, when Arjuna brought Ashwatthama to her, she felt compassion. Was it material compassion or spirit compassion? Which one?
According
She
to the
felt.
purports, if you read those purports, Prabhupada actually says two things there. In one purport, he says, Draupadi being a pure devotee of the Lord, naturally she was soft-hearted. Then Prabhupada also says that being in a woman's body, she felt that he was, in one sense, a Brahmana, and one should not kill a Brahmana. And he said that was from a material perspective, material compassion.
Right.
If you read all of the purports of Srila Prabhupada, although he says both things, he tends to point more to the fact that Draupadi's compassion was material compassion.
And also she felt for Ashwatthama's mother. So was it
Yes.
also material compassion?
Yes, Prabhupada says soft-hearted, Vaishnavas are always soft-hearted. So there's an element of spiritual compassion, but overall it's been material compassion. If you read the purports, Prabhupada.
Okay,
There's an echo. Are you getting an echo from me also?
Sorry?
Are you getting an echo from me, Mataji?
Yeah. Just, I don't know why. I was also thinking that,
Yes.
hello?
I can hear you, Mataji.
Okay. What is the example of spirit compassion?
The example of spiritual compassion is, as we see in Arjuna's case here, is to think of it from the perspective of the soul. When one sees the situation from the perspective of the soul, that is spiritual compassion. Let me just sort out my mic here, Mataji, and then I will. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. It's better. Yes. Thank you, Prabhuji.
I'm not sure what was the mic problem. Yeah, so spiritual compassion is looking at a situation from the perspective of the soul. what would be better long-term for the soul? Like in this situation, Prabhupada says, if Arjuna saw it from the perspective of the soul, then he would have seen the whole situation differently. So essentially, the difference between material compassion and spiritual compassion is material compassion you see from the perspective of the body, and spiritual compassion from the perspective of the soul.
Right.
I sense that you still are unclear, Mataji.
Sorry.
Are you clear about that, or you still?
Yes. It's not completely, I mean, convinced that which one is. But as you said, I have to read the whole thing, and then maybe I will understand better.
Yes.
Yeah, I will. Okay. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Any other-
Krishna. Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Sorry. I just wanted to ask or add something about
certainly.
the echo is coming again. Yes, repeating the thing. Anyway, the spiritual compassion, isn't it like some material first, like somebody is very poor or don't have any shelter or food, so you give some material compassion first and then the spiritual compassion later, because some bit of material compassion is required to give the spiritual compassion.
Yes. Yes. If someone is starving, they have no food, and you go and speak to them spiritual knowledge, they are not going to be very accepting of that. So Prabhupada said, you should feed them first, give them prasadam, and then give them spiritual knowledge. So that's true.
Yeah.
There is some element of material compassion required.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Any other questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. There's
Hare
a
Krishna.
question for you on the chat.
Okay.
Can you please read it?
All right.
Thank you.
So does the husband benefit from his wife dedication if he dies first? Not that I understood. But if the wife is a devotee and the husband has served his wife very nicely, he will get the benefit of serving a Vaishnavi. What if he is not spiritual? I guess that question leads from the first question. And the answer to the first question is, if he is not spiritual, yeah, he will not get. Okay, I think someone is suggesting why we're getting the echo. Yes, thank you, Gyata Mataji. What you said is true. The echo was coming because someone was unmuted. Thank you for that. It was distracting me, so thank you for pointing that out. Any other questions? Is that Meena Mataji, you asked that question? Is that answer satisfactory, or would you like to explore it a bit more? The answer to your question. Okay, there's another question here. Why is ego classified as false? Oh, okay. Okay, that's a good question. Ego means identity. So false ego means false identity. So we all have a original identity. The moment we come into the material world, we take on a false identity. Therefore, it is called false ego. There is also real ego. There is something called the real ego. The real ego is the identity of the soul, its eternal identity, its eternal spiritual constitutional position. So false ego means false identity. So I hope that answers your question, Santosh Mataji.
Yes, it does, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Just seeing if there's any other questions. Surabhi Mataji, the slide on false ego was very informative. Thank you very much. Jai, Hare Krishna. Okay, I think Emma Mataji. Isn't Prashad spiritual compassion only as it is transcendental, not a material platform? Good point. A good point, Emma Mataji. Prashadam is on the spiritual platform. It is spiritual compassion. But if one just feeds the person ordinary food, then it's not spiritual. It's not spiritual. And just to come back to maybe what Supra Mataji asked early on, examples of material compassion versus spiritual compassion. Material compassion, Prabhupada says, is to open up hospitals, schools, to dig wells, anything that's pertaining to the welfare of the body. That is material compassion. And anything that can lead to the elevation of the soul, that's spiritual compassion. So thank you for that clarification, Emma Mataji. Okay, any other questions, comments, or reflections by anyone? How is everyone doing with the Pandav Nirjala Ekadasi? Has anyone had any particular realizations through fasting today or through the observance of Ekadasi? Anyone would like to share? Everyone managing?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Prabhuji, by Krishna's mercy, so far I have done it. I had a little bit of doubt. I might not, but I just prayed in the morning that Krishna, if you want me to do it, then you have to give me the strength. And so far I have managed. So let's see, I might be able to pull through.
Oh,
So
that's
it's
nice.
all without Krishna's mercy, we cannot do it. On ordinary day, without eating and drinking, it's very difficult.
Yes.
But I think the Krishna gives strength and just manage it. So
That's good. That's
Hare
very-
Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare
I-
Krishna, Nitya Mataji.
Yes, I was thinking how much time we waste on just to fill our belly. And of course, we offer to the Lord that, of course, we eat prasadam. But I'm just wondering, I think we should have at least every month so that then we will understand it is not very important, I don't know, this is what I felt today. We are
Okay.
just wasting a lot of time just cooking and doing. We are really wasting a lot of time, I felt. I'm talking to myself.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. We do give a lot of importance to, although in Bhakti Yoga, in Krishna
Yeah.
consciousness, that is a connection, it's yoga, cooking,
Yeah,
but still a lot of time,
that's it. Yeah,
we also complicate it with all sorts of cooking.
I know.
Mhm.
I don't know. This is what I felt. I felt ashamed of myself, being honest today.
Yeah, thank you for that realization. Okay,
I think
devotees will.
it gives us the spiritual strength and realization, Prabhuji, by doing this. I know we do all the Ekadashi, but one completely Dirjula is the one we do every year. Plus we do also on the day of Janmashtami. So those 2 days. And I think so we do more reading today and more chanting.
Yes.
And that realization is that we should be doing this every day, but I think somehow we try our best to do it today.
Yes, that's true, Mataji. That's very true. We feel
Yeah.
that food is
I
spiritual.
mean, spiritually, yes, it's 9 o'clock, but we are still there with
Yes.
Krishna's blessing as we carry on. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank
By
you. very
doing
much.
this chart, I think so it was wonderful to pass even 1 hour. It's very, very nice. Under your guidance, Prabhuji, very nice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining today. So we'll conclude today. Thank you very much, dear devotees. And those of you who are staying up for the whole night, hearing and chanting, I wish you a wonderful Pandava Nirjal Ekadasi and, feeling the bliss of Krishna consciousness. Thank you very much. We'll end at Vaishnava Pranams. Let us offer all our respectful obeisances to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are just like desire trees, for their full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha
Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Pavamebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji, for
Prabhuji.
wonderful
Krishna
class.
Prabhu.
Thank you,
Srila
Prabhuji.
Prabhupada ki jai.